Let's add her. There she
There's
is.
Emily. Everyone, I'd like to introduce you to my friend Emilé Zynobia. She is a professional snowboarder. She's appeared in several ski and snowboard movies, including The Approach 1 and 2, and the most recent movie called Inaccessible. She's a sustainability advocate and consultant, and a graduate of the Yale School of Environmental Management, as well as she is the athlete team manager at Mountain Hardwear. Are you ready to jump into how do you both feel about doing my mountain culture trivia that I wrote up specially for you?
I'm so nervous. Also, did I read it properly, like mountain or like country music? Or
No,
was that like a little bit of my dyslexia? Okay.
There's no country music involved today.
Oh, okay. There's no music involved. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So I completely read that question wrong. But anyway, let's
If there were country music involved, I would be worthless.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see. This kind of ties in a little bit. I tried to bring it around, but okay. Number one, and it's a multiple choice, and you just have to give me your final, like which one, A, B, or C, which you like. Okay. Number one, which song rights in a ski or snowboard movie cost the most? A, Outro by M83 in The Art of Flight, which was in 2011. B, Wanna Be a Baller by Lil Troy in Yearbook by Matchstick in 2004. Or C, Bones by Imagine Dragons in the Warren Miller movie Snow Society in 2025.
I'm going to go, I want to say A, but I remember when that movie came out that they weren't maybe as big then. So I'm going to go with B.
I was going to go with B.
You're both going to go with B? Final answer?
B was my final.
My head was my best.
Choice. Yeah. As far as I know, that is correct. I do know that Tanner Hall paid $10,000 of his own money in 2004 to get that Lil Troy song. As far as M83 Outro in The Art of Flight, whatever they paid could not have been equal to what $10,000 in 2004 would be equal to today. And also, I know that for the Warren Miller movie, I know what their cap is for songs, and it's under 10 grand by a couple grand. So
I mean,
you're both right.
I had heard the story, I think, about Tanner coming out of pocket before. So that's why I didn't know for sure, but that was what I based my guess on.
All right. So you're done so far. Okay. Number two, which state in the U.S. has the most ski areas? A, California, B, New York, or C, Colorado?
California, A is California, B is New York, C is Colorado?
Yeah.
I think it's New York.
I kind of want to say New York too, like, because it feels like a sneaky one.
Right.
Yeah, you're both right.
Oh,
B again,
okay.
New York.
Okay, I was going to say, like, just to change it up, I was like, let's go with
No.
Colorado.
I know. I was going to make you go with your first instinct there. I wasn't going to let you go past your first instinct.
First instinct is just like, yeah.
The C for the tiebreaker. In the Approach movies 1 and 2, groundbreaking movies, which song rights were obtained by one of the athletes DMing the artist directly for permission? Is it A, Brooklyn Bell DMing Jane McGizmo to get Blazin' by Coffee featuring Jane McGizmo? Is it B, Vasu Sojitra DMing Jessie for the song Protein? Or is it C, the director Ann Cleary DMing the Alessi brothers to get Seabird?
I don't know. This is just going to be...
You're going to have to guess.
I'll guess C, the director DM someone.
I'm going to go with A, but I'm probably wrong.
No, Emily, you're right.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
See, okay, slight advantage.
Nobody could hear back. Like, all the music everyone was writing and they wouldn't hear back. It was like down to the wire. And Brooklyn DM'd Jane McGizmo, who's the featured artist on the Coffee track. And Jane said yes. So then it was good.
Wow.
So insane.
Yeah.
That was like, amazing. It was like a little inside ball there. Sorry.
Yeah,
Mom.
totally. Sorry.
That's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
But just okay. All right, so let's move on. Emily, I'd love to hear from you. How did you get into snowboarding, and or when did you fall in love with the sport?
Wow. I got into snowboarding when I was about, I think I tried it when I was like, my birthday's in the winter. So between like the ages of 12 and 13, my grandparents brought me to Jackson, Wyoming for the first time and put me in camp, and I was pretty taken with it. And honestly, I just thought, coming from Southern California where I had lived with them, you know, board sports are like what you do. So leaned into snowboarding, and also it was like what my parents weren't doing, so even more so. And yeah, I mean, it really just like grew organically over time, like, you know, would come for winter breaks, and didn't get too much time during the winter. You know, you get like 2 weeks off as a kid. And then yeah, I mean, pretty much like was super taken with being in snow, like really just loved it recreationally. And I ended up going to college in Montana and then spending even more time snowboarding. And yeah, it's hard to say like if there was really a moment, but it was like sort of like a confluence of moments of like being in deep powder, being exhausted, being like, you know, just like so like giggly and laughing and just, yeah, feeling that there was like a lot of opportunity to play and how it like strengthened relationships for me. So I've clearly carried that with me and still love snowboarding to this day. So yeah, it's sort of like the quick and dirty.
What does your perfect riding day look like?
My perfect riding day. It's usually being with like good friends. I'm definitely not someone who's like no friends on a powder day. It's probably a powder day with like the right temps, and which is sort of like just like warm enough that you're not like freezing, but it's cold enough that the snow's keeping and you're not like chasing, you know, the change in the snowpack at all during the day as it like warms up. It's just like, yeah, it's just like the most perfect consistent day. Maybe it's like it starts stormy and then it like goes blue mid-afternoon and you're just like sparkles and yeah, it's like one of those days and I'm just like in the trees chasing friends. Yeah.
I want that.
That sounds pretty perfect to me too.
Yeah.
So were you in Missoula or Bozeman in Montana?
I went to school in Missoula. Yeah.
Missoula.
Yeah.
University of Montana.
Yeah. And I remember my first year of school there, I had this climate change professor named Steve Running, who was like a part of like the IPCC reports. And I remember him being like, this is going to be a really good winter, like buy your passes to Snowbowl. And I do remember that winter just being absurdly good. Like just the snowbanks were like taller than our cars, like driving down the main street in Missoula. And it was just like, so spectacular. Yeah.
Can we have his number? Because I'd kind of like to call him about this.
Yes. Steve Running is the man. Yeah, he loved, like, I think that's what I loved about going to school in Missoula so much, is that like all the professors like just really loved living in that place, and they were all about like being outside and whatever their like hobbies were. And he definitely loves snow. So yeah.
Yeah, Missoula's a great town for sure. And so were you an environmental major at Montana?
Yeah, I started out as an environmental studies major, and then did a double in natural resource conservation, and like really started to go into like the science side of things, and then did a minor in international development.
Wow. Yeah. And then did you go straight to Yale or no? Okay.
No, the path is long and winding. Yeah.
Well, give us the quick and dirty how you got to Yale.
Yeah. Or
the long and winding.
Yeah. I mean, I'll try and make it quick. I mean, I just knew I wanted to be in the mountains. I wanted to be outside. I graduated not really knowing what I was doing. I really appreciated the like blend of humanities and science. I think that's something that's still really served me well, even to this moment in time. And I graduated. I immediately moved back to Jackson because we had left LA a few years prior when I started college. And I started working at Teton Science Schools. There was this AmeriCorps program in like sort of teaching young kids natural history and like taking them out. And so I was doing a lot of outdoor education that sort of evolved into like joining NOLS. It evolved into, when I wasn't doing like hiking instructing for them, I started trying to, explore like, do I want to go back to school? What am I doing? I was like doing a lot of gardening, a lot of nannying, seasonal work. I worked in Ecuador for 3 months studying cacao pollination.
Oh, wow.
And worked on like a paper. So I could like sort of, if I had decided to go back to school, like I was demonstrating a level of like commitment to scientific rigor. Worked for the Bureau of Land Management as like, in essence, like a range technician. So I lived out in Boise for like 6-ish months. And that was like such an interesting education as well. Like Obama was still in office then, and we're working on a lot of like sage grouse conservation efforts.
Is that like a contract position, or how does that work?
It is. So it's this really wonderful program between the US government and the Chicago Botanic Gardens. And they, in essence, it's called the Conservation and Land Management Internship. And I honestly would remember, if it still exists with all the budget cuts these days.
It probably does not now. But.
It was this really incredible program where you apply and then you get placed at like a US federal agency, whether that's like USGS, BLM, National Park Service, what have you. And you sort of fast track into becoming like, an employed sort of entry level, like whatever your skill set is in conservation tech. And it's like a really good way to like move into government work. So it's like a lot of exposure. You get to sort of like get this, and you get paid too. I got paid very well for the position. So it's like beyond an internship, and it's like a fast track to like getting into government work in essence.
Interesting. Yeah. Do they pay you on the GS scale? Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. They do.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, curious.
And it was really cool. Like I got to see like some of the most, sort of degraded landscapes in Idaho. And I got to see some of the most incredible intact sagebrush ecosystem in Idaho. So I really loved the experience. I still like daydream about it from time to time. We would just like GPS to these random spots on a map, and just like set up all this tape and do these like habitat transects and just like survey like out in the middle of nowhere, So it was really cool work. Yeah. Got to see a lot of cool country.
You changed. Yes. You left.
Yes. So then that finished. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like here I am. I'm like, and that's the end of my story. No, it keeps going. So what did I do after that? So I really just started snowboarding more and more, and then doing a lot more like seasonal work, and just feeling like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was wanting to be just outside. I think by that time, that probably brings me up to like the age of like 26 or 27. And I was doing a lot more snowboarding, a lot more focus on that. I was starting to get asked to like do shoots here and there for product. My grandparents were really worried that I was becoming a bum because I was just like living in Jackson at the house. They weren't there all the time. It was kind of a sweet deal. And so I was like, okay. And I was also struggling to find work. It's really interesting. I just felt like my University of Montana degree for some reason didn't like hold the weight of like getting into different jobs that I applied to. And so I was like, okay, what's going to be like the thing that gives me what I need? And I was like, Ivy League school. It's really as simple as that. Also, Yale has one of the oldest like forestry schools in the nation. It's like, home of the Forest Service, and a lot of the a lot of the like initial that and University of Montana, which is really cool in terms of like you think about a lot of the guiding policy that came out of both of those institutions. But Yale has the branding, right? And so I applied. It took me 2 years to apply because I just was so like academically insecure. Like I have a friend, Jesse Bryant, who like bugged me for 2 years. Like he had applied to the program. We actually did Teton Science Schools together and we just like became really tight, and he applied to the program and he got in, and I was like, dang, like I wish I was smart enough. And he just bugged me relentlessly for 2 years to apply, and I finally did, and then I got in, and I was just like, holy shit, this is crazy. And yeah, at that point I was, like the opportunities to, you know, do more work in the outdoor industry were starting to evolve. So it was like this really interesting moment of like a lot of like paths merging. So yeah, I moved out to New Haven. Don't ask me what year. I think it was right before COVID. So yeah.
And how long of a program was it?
It's a 2-year program. And with COVID happening, so I had 1 full year there. And I remember that March, they were like, be prepared to leave for spring break and not come back. And then like the world shut down. And so I was back in Jackson, which was like this really serendipitous time, because I remember around that time getting an email from Ingrid and like asking me to be a part of what ultimately became the Approach project. And I was like, I think you have the wrong person. Like, I don't film, yada, yada. And she was like, nope, I think you're perfect. Like, you're going to be a part of this project. And that's sort of like that year, I think was like the first year we started filming for Approach. Isn't that right, Ingrid?
Yeah. So Emily had come really highly recommended, and we went out to Jackson. We're like, well, we'll just, you know, ski with her and see how it goes and see if we gel, see if she even wants to hang out with us and do this crazy project. And I will never forget getting to the top of the lift, and we're like, well, we'll follow you. And she just takes off. And it was like chalky bumps, not easy. And she just took off, and we're like, well, shoot, we lost her. Like it's so fast. It's so fast.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways,
yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, we need Emily. And we just got along really good. And yeah, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was really cool.
Like it's hard to imagine a time before us knowing each other at this point.
I know.
Yeah.
So just to circle back, can you just tell us a little bit about the Yale program and you know, kind of what
I do?
Yeah.
The Yale program, it's interesting. As I was there, it's sort of like this moment in time that is definitely like a sort of like bookmark for them in terms of like, I applied to the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. And by the time about a year in, the name changed to Yale School of the Environment. So there's like this big, almost like paradigm shift. Like we had this dean who was really, I mean, they're going to hate that I'm saying this, but I'm not going to like sugarcoat anything. She's really close to extractive industry in Wyoming. She actually came from the University of Wyoming. And, you know, so I would say over the time that I was at YSC, it really became very cozy with industry and like sort of like, you know, the free market. Started focusing a lot more on like, you know, sort of like policy approaches and market approaches to solving like environmental issues. And when I got in, the route that I took was, I was sort of frustrated because when I first started looking at the program, it was very much like choose your own adventure, choose whatever, you know, assortment of classes you want. And then by the time I came in, they had shifted that to like, you choose a specialization, you do these X amount of credits. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I want sort of like the freedom to choose what I want to like explore. And so I chose, a lot of people come into this program don't actually have an environmental background, which I think is really interesting. They come from a lot of different arenas, which is like special and unique. But the sort of cheat code I applied there was that my specialization I chose was, you know, conservation and like climate science, which I had a strong like undergraduate experience in. And my dean of that specialization, he knew my climate change and global change professor from University of Montana. And he's like, oh, you know, you work with Corey Cleveland, like you don't need to take any of these classes. So he like excused me from a lot of the requirements. And I just took that as an opportunity to sort of like explore like industrial ecology, looking at different data visualization, you know, taking a stab at like, you know, business and the environment and things like that. And I ultimately landed on looking at sort of like market innovations for solving, or like natural capital, natural solutions to climate change, and really thinking about like large scale approaches to dealing with climate and just like general environmental issues. So yeah. Sort of
fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess that kind of leads into another question, but working in sustainability in the outdoor industry and beyond, what would you say is the number one change that a company can make to make a difference?
Oof. That is really a hard question to answer, but I will say, I mean, it really depends on where you are. Like, obviously, from my perspective and what I learned, like one of the biggest unlocks for sustainability is really like energy. So like addressing your energy usage. Is there a way to like shift where you're receiving your energy from? If it's renewable, XYZ, are there ways to operationalize like and increase efficiency like on site? There's a lot of like different, so I like looked at greenhouse gas accounting, which is interesting because like they didn't really have a class for this while I was at Yale. It only came in after I graduated, but that was a lot of the work that I looked at, was sort of like thinking about you know, emissions accounting and working on that. Like after school I had like worked with Natural Selection to help them with their sort of like sustainability agenda, and you know, doing all their accounting and then thinking about how to offset their emissions, thinking about opportunities to like increase efficiency down the road. But yeah, so that's all to say is like, one is like, you think about your own body, it's like get your vitals and see where you need to start. And then your vitals are a lot of like your resource use, you know, your upstream purchases. Where are you getting, you know, are you using raw materials? Like what are the inputs to your business? And then, you know, thinking about how you use those, how you actually run your business, right? Day in, day out. And then thinking about like on, you know, the downstream, what's your waste? Like, what are the opportunities to like increase, you know, decrease your waste, increase recycling, XYZ, ultimately wanting to decrease waste because we know how effective recycling is, which is like hit or miss from time to time, but it's all about like where you are and like the place. And like, you know, in Wyoming, I have like really crap recycling opportunities as like a civilian. In San Francisco, I have like so many options. So it's really just about like becoming familiar with the place in which you're based and what the opportunities are. So yeah.
Well, that's interesting, and it goes along with what we talked to Nathan last month, who's the sustainability manager for A Basin. I know that's a lot of what he was talking about, is where they get their energy from and how they operate. So it's like, yeah, it's cool to hear you say that, and that's how you think about it in that way.
Yeah, you know, one of the things like I got from my education at Yale was like this really incredible like energy and like global energy usage class, and like thinking about, you know, consumption and like where it's going, and like, you know, all of the different dynamics around that. And one of my main takeaways is like, if we can solve the energy Rubik's Cube, we can unlock a lot of our climate emissions. But that's tough because we're also like living in this moment of AI, and AI data centers are like out competing renewable energy projects. Like even in our backyard in Wyoming recently, like there was a wind project that ended up getting terminated because a data center outbidded them. So it's an interesting time.
So when you say unlock the energy Rubik's Cube, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of, or at least like the climate change Rubik's Cube. So like energy is, if we can figure out how to like generate energy, store energy, and distribute energy, like we can solve a lot of our emissions issues. Because if you think about it, like a lot of things when it comes to global greenhouse emissions are tied to the way we move, you know, resources around the planet, or how we like grow food, or just how things get from A to B to Z, you know. So how we even move around. Yeah, sorry.
Is that something where, like, what can make that change? Is that the government and the policymakers? Is that consumers voting with their wallets? Like, how does that, how do we unlock the cube?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's in part like it's policy at this point. I think as individuals, like there's a lot we can do in terms of like sharing with our communities, like what we vote for, you know, choosing to, you know, if you have the capacity to like select for renewable energy in your bill, your energy bill monthly, can you put on, you know, your own sort of like, I'm living in a house with solar now, you know, like, can you store and generate your own energy on site, things like that. And then really a lot of these big energy consumption problems begin with our policy and our global policy, unfortunately. It begins with the people we elect, what, you know, their motivations are. And unfortunately, like a lot of people who come out of the Yale School of Environment end up in government. You know, they're really passionate, young, motivated people who are like working for positive change by and large. And, you know, a lot of those people that I knew who were working on these big problems have been fired. I don't really know anyone in government who's like around my age anymore, whether that's from like USAID or working for any of the like sort of federal land management agencies. Like, I don't know anyone. So I think we're a little bit in this moment of, you know, I would almost say like hibernation. You know, I imagine that we will get back to a place where people are going to be back in those positions to help influence these really big problems. But really, it's a policy. It's a top-down issue right now. And, you know, there's like things happening with R&D, like nuclear fusion, nuclear energy is really, you know, coming back online. You know, we've lost a whole generation of people who were very familiar with nuclear energy and generation because we got so afraid and like pretty much ex-nayed all of it for some good reason. You know, Chernobyl's really scary, like, but there's been some sort of like a lot of money going into and on behalf of tech too, and Google, like investment in trying to get some of these nuclear reactors or, you know, concepts up and running and commercialized. But, you know, it's not quite something we've unlocked yet, obviously. I don't know what the original question was. Sorry.
No,
I feel like
we went off of our script too, but it was just too good to not. That's so interesting to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, the solution really does involve, I mean, all forms of energy and not just, you know, focusing on green. Obviously that is important, but we're going to have everything until we can get there, until we can get to a full sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even today, I think I saw that like Trump terminated like 5 wind projects, you know, like these choices like really do have like long-term impacts down the road. And, you know, I mean, but you know, what makes me very optimistic is that like the technology is like really there when it comes to like wind and solar and renewables and even, you know, tidal like turbines and all of the different ideas that people are coming up with, that when the time comes to really implement these at scale, like I don't doubt our capacity to install and get that going. So yeah.
That's awesome.
I like the hibernation term you used. I think that's a good term. that helps me, because I thought we were going backwards, but if you feel we're just hibernating, I'm okay with that.
Well, and I think like the sad part is that we're just like, you know, America's this incredible country that like I believe, you know, there's so many intelligent people here, and it's just unfortunate because right now it's going to be another country that's going to take the lead on renewables, and like where a lot of this leadership is going to be coming from is like, you know, in Asia and not us. And it's going to leave us. China. Yeah, exactly. It's going to leave us at a deficit, a generational deficit for a while. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. So moving on, can you talk about greenwashing? Like, I feel like most people know what it is, but can you tell us what it is, how often you see it, and how much of sustainability work is basically just marketing versus how much is actually done to make a difference on a deeper level?
Yeah, I mean, I'll first off start off by saying that, you know, it's been some time, so like all my lingo on this subject is like maybe a little crispy, but that is all to say is that you can think about greenwashing as, you know, your favorite sort of friend who like oversells, over amplifies their achievements, you know, to like get the praise and you know, whatever it is, like you know, it's a bit of cutting corners. But that aside, yeah, I mean, it is like saying you're doing something and over exaggerating the claim or the outcome, or you are stating a claim that actually doesn't really make a difference in the grand scheme of things. Whether that, you know, it's like I'm trying to think of an example. Well, it's like you can say, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, like popcorn on the popcorn bag when it's like gluten-free, and you're like, yeah, popcorn is gluten-free. But like, you're just putting that on as like marketing to somebody that might not know. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of like greenwashing, but I would say, yeah, like the most nefarious is something that comes off as this like silver bullet or is sold as a silver bullet, and really it is just a drop in the bucket at the end of the day. I think like it's really just comes down to the fact that like sustainability and accounting for like resource use is really like a young science as well. Like it's not even hard to call it a science, but like, you know, we really don't know the emissions associated with every single input that we're putting into something. So like that accounting is being built out day to day. Those numbers are being refined. That data is like highly protected, highly guarded, and very expensive. And like someone's, you know, emissions for something is going to, there's so many different units, and like someone's data set is going to have a different amount of emissions for, say, an input of like, you know, a sort of fabric, right, than someone else's like data set. So it's a very complicated field. It's emerging. Like, so I think what ends up happening is that, and I'm experiencing this as well, like now being more on a marketing team, is that it's like, how do you distill this for like the common person? And you also tend to have people on these teams who don't really understand the thing themselves, right? Like they're like, okay, cool, like product person, tell me whatever. Okay, cool. And so I don't think it's always like very intentional. I think there's just like a mass lack of education. And I think part of what needs to happen, I'd like to see, one, just like this education should be everyone's. Like we should all be learning this K through 12. Like this should be a language that is shared, because for me, I don't want to see like environmental sustainability as like a specialization. I want to see it embedded in every like element of education. And I'm sure, you know, it's like we have so much noise and there's competing interests, but this is like the one thing that's really going to make a difference, because you need people who are not explicitly in these sort of like, you know, silos. We need people in all the silos and connecting them who have this education, who have this understanding of like resources inputs and just like it doesn't need to be highly specialized. It just needs to be like a basic language we share.
Yeah, that seems pretty like obvious. Like that should be included in education is like, hey, how do we keep our earth going? Like that should be like pretty.
How do I
basic.
do my own financial accounting and how does the earth keep moving? Like those are two like elements I wish I had learned a lot sooner. And it's interesting because I do feel like younger kids, like maybe like K through to middle school, like there is this strong like environmental education, but then like somewhere it just like drops off. Like as soon as you sort of hit middle school into high school, like it's really just about AP classes, AP Lit, AP History, Bio, Calculus, like these things that you don't end up using.
Because everyone's trying to get in that Ivy League school to get on the resume.
Exactly. The cheat code is going back for your master's program. Let you know, skip undergrad. Yeah.
First, everyone.
If you could only get into a master's without an undergrad, right?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that might be on the docket though, you know, like education is completely shifting right now. It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm so far removed from it these days, but
yeah.
So I just got one question. You're talking about the accountability and how everybody's got different systems. I mean, are you talking about, and I've seen this recently because I was just traveling and I'm seeing it more and more, you know, the airline list. Oh, this is your CO2 emission. Now Uber's doing it in the app. They're saying, so when I selected the electric car from the airport the other day, it said, I'm saving this CO2 amount of CO2 or whatever emissions. Is that what you're saying, that everybody kind of has a different formula for, and like there's no guarantee that those are consistent, or are those more accurate and it's mainly on the manufacturing side where there's more proprietary?
Well, okay. I would say for the most part, most organizations are going by the accounting that's been established by, like, in essence, WRI, the World Resources Institute. And I'm sorry if I'm not remembering all, like, it's so funny how much I studied this stuff and then like the acronyms flow out the head. But so WRI has like helped sort of like build the accounting approaches and formulas. And I would say, you know, from a corporate perspective, that's generally, you know, mostly the same. But, you know, different corporations are using sometimes they're using software. Sometimes they're as like rudimentary as like an Excel spreadsheet. You'd be surprised. There are a lot of like big companies that are still using Excel spreadsheets to calculate their emissions. So like this is something that even like, as you know, and one of the I worked at a climate tech firm that sort of helped with accounting and then helped with like finding carbon removals to then get paired. But we weren't focused on like the accounting side as much. But you know, there's companies like Watershed, that's like a major sort of tech company that is helping build the software so that corporates can plug and play their emissions. But yeah, for the most part, that accounting is pretty standard. But depending on, you know, if they're using Watershed, for instance, Watershed probably has a data set that they're leaning on, which the average user is probably not going to really look far into. And then say you are more rudimentary and doing it on an Excel spreadsheet. Well, you're pulling different government data, like probably from different reports. You're finding a lot of these different emissions sort of associated, like you're pulling it from a lot of different places. Or if you have the money, you're paying for a data set. And if you know like anything about any input, like the software can cost tens of thousands of dollars annually, or a data set can cost thousands of dollars. So it's like almost cost prohibitive based on the size of your company and how invested you are in sustainability, right? Because let's not forget, this is voluntary. And most people are focused on the bottom line. So and that's the other point of why I think it's really important to embed this thinking across silos at a company. You want every person on a team, because the thing is if it's put in one silo and it's like, okay, that team deals with all of these things, one, that's an insane workload. two, there's the double burden of like communicating a lot of this information to lay folks. And then three, that team can get removed based on leadership's perspective. You know, it's not really something that's resilient or time can really like stand the test of time, likely. So
Wow.
a lot of thoughts there, but yeah.
No, this is super interesting. It's incredible. But I'm sure we could spend a long time on this, and we should. So let's talk about your the new movie Inaccessible, which was incredible. I just got to see it when I got back in town, and yeah, and it's funny that the crazy mountains have come up for me a couple times this year because I was in Paradise Valley, and I've got a lot of friends in Livingston. So hot topic this while I was out there this summer. But why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. So Inaccessible really is probably one of my most favorite projects I've ever been a part of, because it really does take the vehicle of like this desire to explore, be outside through the, you know, sort of vehicle of snow and travel, and really applies it to this issue that reaches and touches everyone of different recreational groups. And part of the project, in essence, the whole reason for being on the project was to sort of trace how difficult it can be to access public lands based on the checkerboard of private and public ownership, and how these like incredible islands of public lands get, you know, sort of locked off and isolated, surrounded by private land. And then it just becomes this sort of like playground for people who own, you know, have the advantage of ownership. So we're just, yeah. And the crazies, you know, it was really important for us in this project to not, obviously we're in the crazies, but this is something that's happening all across the West and even on the East Coast. And, you know, as we move into this time where like land is at a premium, it's really hard to access areas. Like fewer and fewer people are owning elements of what is in essence, you know, your birthright as an American. I think it's really important. It's a really important issue to highlight for folks, because, you know, it's coming up. Like, I mean, for us, when the public land sell-off was sort of being proposed, like, I mean, this project was already in motion, and we were like, whoa, like feeling very timely, because there's always sort of there's been a strong effort for decades to dispose of public lands. So,
well, yeah. And there's groups of private landowners that are getting together to try to buy the lands around public lands, is what I've heard, to try to block them off, to make them even more inaccessible. And not even make it so you can get through the little slips in the corners like you guys did in that movie. But yeah,
so we in that movie like highlight that there's like 16 million acres that are like susceptible to being closed off to public access, or currently, in the future, or in the future. And, you know, if you think about that, like Yellowstone is about 2 million-ish acres. That's like 8 times the size of Yellowstone that we're going to be kept out of. If those numbers are correct, which is like, it's just absolutely astronomical to think about. And I've really enjoyed this project. One, getting to partner with Onyx, not to like plug them, but here's the plug. I got to have like the premium like subscription, and I went wild in terms of like looking at ownership in my own backyard in Jackson and thinking about, you know, there are areas where I'm like, oh, I always thought I could walk there, but that technically is just given by the grace of like whoever owns this, because you can own into the riverbed in Wyoming, whereas in Montana, like it's just the bank. Correct. And so there are just all these areas that I didn't realize were privately held that I thought I could just walk across. And there was an area that I thought was privately held, and so I never walked on it, but it turned out it was BLM land. And so now I've like started hunting morels back there, or just like exploring in that zone, which is just in our like neighborhood. But yeah.
And so just to further plug Onyx, it will show you the private and public land. Is that how you're getting this info? I believe that's what you were using in the movie.
Yeah. The premium subscription will allow you to see like down to like the address of the owner. So you could even mail someone.
Oh, wow.
And like, which if you think about a tool for like advocating for public access, maybe private landowners wouldn't love this, but like you could send them, you know, depending on how many shells of shell companies, because this is Jackson I'm talking about, like you could potentially reach the owner of the property, you know, via letter and just say, hey, it like means a lot to me to be able to like cross section and like show appreciation and gratitude because, you know, the world we live in, the framework is like they get to decide. If you own, you get to decide. So for the most part, but yeah.
Right.
That's cool. Well, okay,
Yeah.
we have a couple more minutes. I just want to ask you this, and then we can maybe come back to the importance of public lands. But first, this is a sustainability podcast, and that can mean all sorts of different things. But in your new role at Mountain Hardwear, can you tell us about what sustainability for building an athlete team and partnerships and marketing looks like going forward for you, and why that's important in the bigger industry of like sustainability for the ski and snowboard industry?
Well, it's interesting because Mountain Hardwear doesn't have like a dedicated sustainability team. So that's like, that was an interesting point, you know, when I was brought on, they were like, you know, we don't have this because like, you know, this is sort of like what I'm known for in the industry. And I said that it's really important for me to be in a role that is not exclusively to the point I made earlier about sustainability and environmental issues, because it's important for people to be in different roles at companies so that they have the thinking to operationalize or value set to operationalize sustainability without a directive to operationalize it, which I think is like as important in many cases. And so when I think about sustainability, I mean, it means so many different things. When it comes to product marketing, it means, when it comes to product marketing, it means, you know, thinking about when we're communicating, you know, about product durability and longevity, like, can we stand by this product? Because first of all, it's like, if you're going to take these resource inputs, you want the product or the, you know, whatever the output is to last a long time and to be durable. Okay, well, what are the ways that we can communicate that in our storytelling, in our marketing of that product to folks so that they know that when they, you know, whether it's secondhand or they're purchasing this product from us, that one, it's going to last, but two, like, what's the care for making it last? So those are two elements, I think, of the sustainability story there. You know, how to take care of your Gore-Tex, XYZ. A lot of PFAS has been removed due to a lot of the regulations in California. You probably are both very familiar with this. But yeah, so there's actually been quite a sea change in the industry in terms of like toxic chemicals that are on our Gore-Tex products being banned now. When it comes to, you know, thinking about the athlete team, you know, there's what I ultimately hope for, and then there's the reality of what's on the ground and trying to like have those two things meet in the middle. Right now, sustainability from a team perspective looks like, frankly, it's sort of hard, you know, it's like relational sustainability right now, you know. It's about, you know, maybe not having folks scattered on so many trips, but us all going on one trip together. It's really basic, I would have to say. Maybe down the line, it can look like, you know, actually tracking athlete travel and then working to offset it. I didn't get to state this earlier, but I am a believer in carbon removals. I think they've gotten a really bad rap because, one, it's something that we're trying, we're building the plane as we're flying, right? And so there's been bad actors and there's been people who have managed, or, you know, the science caught up to them before they were aware of what they were claiming. But, you know, carbon removals are a really potent tool, I think. So those are things I'm thinking about.
Is carbon removal like carbon offset? Is that the same?
It's a form of an offset, but it's more permanent. Depends on how it's deployed. So it's, you know, there's removal and then there's avoidance. So like you think about a township that's, you know, was reliant on like fossil fuels for energy. Okay, well, a wind farm gets put in. That's seen as like an avoidance, right? Because they would otherwise be purchasing fossil fuels, whereas removals are like, you know, biochar. It's capturing, it's storing, ideally carbon in a longer time span. Yeah. There's a lot of different types of carbon removal. So like there's engineered, you know, you think about the fans in Greenland, that's actually like sucking it out of the air, or you think about like natural approaches to carbon removal. No.
Like the
What-
peat
what-
in the tundra.
Well,
Right.
yeah, and keeping that preserved, or
Yes.
like biochar, which is
Yes.
like a form of like, it's called pyrolysis. So like if you treat biomass at a certain temperature under a certain pressure, it creates a really long lived like form of like an agricultural byproduct called biochar, right? And that instead of that getting broken down and emitted into the atmosphere via like respiration, right, that gets stored in the soil and is this really like potent soil amendment. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. I mean, those are.
Sorry if you need me to like, yeah, like you're like, yo, what
No,
did you just
I
say?
get so
Yeah.
No.
excited when you talk about this stuff. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
It makes me fired up.
Yeah, and then there's like blue carbon, which is like, you know, restoring like, you know, seagrass or seaweed, or like, you know, you can put like lime into like certain riverbeds that have been acidified, and that's a form of carbon removal because the chemical process is like drawing down CO2 out of the air. So many different kinds, but yeah.
Wow. What about individual actions? I mean, these obviously are some of larger collective actions, but what about individually? What can we do?
I mean, I think everyone knows, you know, I'm of the mind that like reduce, reuse, recycle, think about your consumption, like, you know, but I also don't want to put the burden on individuals as much anymore. Like the burden is on leadership at this point. Like I'm not of the mind that like, I know like Bezos is out there blowing my like annual carbon footprint in like 2.2 seconds. Like there's a lot of different issues that are like layered on top of this. And it's like, I'm not gonna, you know, because I say this because I was like super depressed out of undergrad. I was just like, I can't drive my car. I'm so worried about the future. And I think as I've like gotten more experience and then went back to school, it's like, actually a lot of this stuff begins at the top. Like there's no amount of like avoiding water bottles or like maybe you driving a couple less miles, but like think about it. It's like we're all having to live further from where we work. Like it's really hard socioeconomically to like even just exist right now. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to put that burden on the shoulders of people who are like individuals who don't have as much power to affect change. People like Bezos, people like Elon, like these people know better and they have the power
100%.
to do something, and are politicians. And unfortunately right now we're just living through a time of really poor leadership. So that's my attitude. Like I think people know because people are having to sort of ration as is. Like it's expensive out here. So I'm not going to tell like parents or like someone who's just trying to scrape by, hey, if you just like biked to work, you know, like I'm not going to take your simple conveniences from you. I'm sorry. That's the camp I'm in.
Oh,
Especially
my
when
gosh.
some of us are being forced back into the office 5 days a week too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like mic drop from Emily. I feel like that I've got
That was-
nothing.
I used to be on the camp of individual. I was never like one or the other for me. I was like, it takes both. But I'm like, frankly, the energy issue, like when I think about the big unlocks, it really does take strong political and corporate leadership at this point. And for whatever reason, there's not a lot of motive.
Yeah.
But times change.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I
sooner
feel like
than
we need to
later.
end on something. What can we say?
Oh,
Alrighty,
okay. One of the things that I will say is like, I think, you know, I don't want to come off as like nonchalant or like unaffected by this stuff. I think it's been like a deep journey to get to this point of like acceptance. Like I think there's a lot of, you know, we're living through this time right now, especially like this season, you know, like snow's not showing up. Like from my perspective, a lot of the things that I studied in undergrad are happening so much faster than I had even remembered, because I would used to do the math when I was in class where I was like, oh, I'll be like 65 or I'll be 70 by the time that happens, and I'm about to be 35. And but you know, it's humbling. Like it reminds us of like the essence of our relationship to nature, and like you don't get to override nature. And there's been a lot of really strong writing on the matter. Like one person who I look to in terms of like a strong land ethic and stewardship is this agricultural farmer from Kentucky named Wendell Berry. And he has this quote that I love, which is like, in essence, you can only begin with what has happened. And this is where we are. How do we move forward? Yeah. So
all right. Well, I like that. That's like something that we can do, because Malone and I, like, that's my soapbox, is all of our individual actions are, yeah, they're good in terms of helping us have the buy-in and feeling invested in it. But the main levers are pulled through policy and leadership and corporations. And basically all of us are down here just arguing with each other about, oh, you drive this car and you drive that car. Like, beating each other up in the comments when everyone up here is running away with it.
When they're flying private, kind of, like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Right?
Like
that's my soapbox.
Yeah. I will say, sorry, Ingrid, I feel like one point that you just reminded me of that I do think is important when we think about individual is like, what can you do to lean into your community? Because that's where your own resilience is going to come from. It's not going to come from our political leaders. It's going to be like, can I go to my neighbor and ask for support when like I'm facing a natural disaster, or like, you know what I mean? Like, what are the tools in your community? So I think that should also be the focus for folks, is like, how am I going to manage to remain adaptable in the face of this changing planet?
Yeah. And how can I look out for those around me? And I think we talk about like an individual action that we can do each time, and we try to think about it. And for me, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go read some Wendell Berry, because I always see quotes, but I'm like, I've never spent time with some of these like Robin Wall Kimmerer and some of these big thinkers on how we connect to nature and the environment. And I think it's important to just spend time with those types of thinkers. And I just really appreciate the way that your brain works and the fact that you spent time with us today. I learned so much. And it's always great to see your face and get to, spend a little bit of time, even if it's through a screen. I just want to squeeze you.
I know. I'm just so honored to be asked to be a part of this conversation, and and just for a reminder of like what's important and essential. So thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you. And I mean, just fascinating stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. So thanks. No, I'm serious. Thanks for being on.
Awesome.
Now we have to go shred somewhere. We have to go shred somewhere. We'll meet up and shred. We'll make it happen. But amazing. Thank you so much, Emily.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Emily.